Hey, morning. It's very, very nice in Dallas, Texas. We were just talking to a fella from Dallas, Texas last hour, and now here we are again visiting Dallas, where we find Michelle Dean, a licensed professional counselor, owner and founder of Mindscape Mental Health. And we're talking about overparenting. Are you one? Are you an overparenter? Our conversation presented by Marcus and Mack, voted best law firm and best personal injury lawyer 3 years in a row and the best of Indiana County contests. Visit them online at marcusandmack.com. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you with us here today. You know, there's that, I think it's a car commercial on right now where they drop their daughter off at college and then they go out gallivanting all about, and the daughter calls them and they have to act like, we're missing you so badly. And everything. Evidently, that's not as common as we might think. Moms and dads are maybe hanging around the kids a little bit too long.
Yes.
So overparenting, what is it? How do you get a handle on that?
I mean, getting a handle on it really would be consistency and expectations. Talking about those things with your kids and knowing kind of how to balance, and I know it's different for every kid, but how to balance what to help them with versus what to allow them to do themselves. And I mean, I think it's important for kids to make their own mistakes and learn from them. Obviously, you don't want to make big ones, but I think some of the overparenting that we've been seeing is that they're crossing some boundaries with like showing up to job interviews, applying for their kids, or trying to, I think it's okay to say, hey, I found some jobs that might be up your alley, but I don't think it's okay for them to take the initiative to do it for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mom and dad, sometimes they want so much for their kids to have a really good life and maybe even a better life than they had. So that's really what we're talking about here a little bit. So maybe they pay their bills for them. They act sort of like their personal secretary. Some of them end up, spending more time in the school building than their kids do. They just can't. They just can't let go, can they?
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk about what that does to the kid and the child's development, because that's the thing, isn't it? The child is going to obviously depend on mom or dad to do it for them rather than learning to do it themselves, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the developmental skills and confidence to do things themselves, I think it probably creates a lot more anxiety for these kids because they're feeling their pressure from themselves, but also from their parents. And maybe the expectation is this perfectionism that they don't feel like is attainable. I also see a lot of kids that they lack a lot of decision-making skills, that they can't do it themselves because they've really relied on their parents to make those key decisions for them. Mm-hmm. So then they're in the adult world and they're like, I don't even know if I like my job, or I don't know if I should do this or this, because they didn't go through kind of that period where you've learned some of these things.
Yeah. So we steer them a little bit too harshly toward what we think might be best for them instead of letting them find out for themselves. And sometimes that does, Michelle, that does involve allowing them to make some mistakes. We could point out to them that these are some possible consequences of the decision-making process, but we have to let them make that choice, don't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's a big part of it. In terms of careers and seeking jobs and that, no, we don't want to go to their job interview. That's certainly not a good idea, but we can help them to prepare for that job interview, can't we?
Yeah, of course. I think it's important parents are there for support. I think even, your kid is writing their resume, it's okay to go and review and give them feedback, proofread. But you really do want to give them that ownership and the responsibility that they have done this themselves. And I think that also portrays to whoever is reading the resume and giving the interview that it matches, it's authentic to the person that they're that's sitting in front of them. I mean, encouraging and guiding them is one thing. Technical assistance is one thing, but also teaching them that this is on them. Mm-hmm. And you can give constructive feedback, but my mom just said that she just had to learn to let go, and she would just pray. Because she would worry if I changed my major. Oh, what are you going to do with that? If it wasn't something direct, like teaching is a straight path to a certain job, or and so I know that's hard on parents, mm-hmm. And that definitely does make them anxious.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like when we were kids, and the learning to swim cliche of do we help them with the strokes, hold them up, and really work with them in that way, or do we toss them out into the middle of the pool and say, swim or drown, kid? Mm-hmm. That we hear of those things, and we say, oh, they didn't really do that, did they? But in a sense, they do. They let them learn to swim on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And in life, it can be that way too.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So that's the job. But what happens when they're making big time decisions, buying a house, buying a car, and really relationship advice too? We can overparent there too, can't we?
Mm-hmm. I think it's important for you to give your kids kind of some rein of like, okay, here's how you find some of this information, or here's these resources. My parents introduced me early on to a financial advisor that's been really good at, when I turned 18, helping me understand what investments were. My parents were very involved in some of those things, but they just gave me resources. Like, here's this resource, you can use it or not. Mm-hmm. And I think that was really important because it gave me that, okay, well, I do want to learn. Thank you for this resource. And I was able to utilize it. So it wasn't just something that was coming from them. I know, especially when kids are 18, 19, 20 and making some of their own decisions, they really do want that autonomy. And so maybe even hearing it from parents, they're not as receptive, but giving them those key resources, I think, is really important.
Yeah, we can really understand that. That's a good call by your mom and dad, too, to hook mm-hmm. you up with the financial advisor so early in your life. That's a really smart thing to do. We also need, as parents, to avoid rolling our eyes sometimes when we when we hear our kids with their great plan, and maybe it involves the lottery, maybe who knows what it involves, but we shouldn't just roll our eyes and call our kids names like silly goose or anything like that, or something worse. We should really help them to fight through all of the decision-making process and consider the options and all of that, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, all good advice. So tell me about Mindscape Mental Health. What do you do?
Well, I'm a licensed professional counselor, and we provide counseling services. So individual counseling, family, child and adolescent, and really just are trying to be there for the community, really with anything you're going through. I specialize specifically in like OCD, ADHD, anxiety disorders, depression, mm-hmm. Things like that.
You typically work with the kids?
I really do. I like to work with adolescents and young adults, like transitioning from high school to college or from college to adulthood.
Well, I'm glad you said that last part. Transitioning from high school to college is about the toughest thing a kid can go through, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. And, a lot of the campuses have they have resources that the kids can get a certain amount of sessions from school. But I think it's really hard to, a lot of those, it's, limited to 6 sessions. So you're building a relationship with someone and then you have to go find another counselor or, so a lot of the kids that I have seen locally in person then will go off somewhere else in Texas and I can see them in telehealth. So mm-hmm. That's been really great.
I'm sure there are a lot as well that say, I know there are counseling services available to me here at my new university, but nobody else seems to be going to them, so why should I?
Yeah, or they're really overbooked. It's hard to get them, or but I'm glad that they're there, like, for some of those. And I encourage them, hey, if you want to make those appointments, go for it. I will still be here whenever those are done if you want to utilize them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a really helpful thing that they have some continuity in their care from that big transition. She's
Michelle Dean, Mindscape Mental Health. Her website, folks can learn more?
Yes, mindscapementalhealth.com.
Beautiful. Michelle, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Just about 3 minutes away from 10 o'clock. Fox News next. Josh, a brief look at news, and then it's the Brian Kilmeade Show.